Today we're going to tour the Home Alone house, just as it was in the movie, but without any actors getting in the way. Hi, I'm Marina Coates. Welcome to Behind the Scenes, where we get up close and personal with all your favorite TV and movie homes. Today we're going to explore every nook and cranny of the Home Alone house. And we'll have the production designer John Muto along for the ride to provide interesting stories and insights only he could provide. Let's get started. We'll begin by putting a persistent rumor to rest. Here is the real-life house used for the exterior shots on Home Alone. But how much filming actually took place in the interior of this home? According to John Muto, the production designer, and Dan Webster, the art director, no scenes were filmed inside the house in Winnetka, Illinois. Only exterior scenes were shot there. All of the interiors of the house were built sets constructed at a high school in Northfield, Illinois, including the basement, the first floor, the second floor, the attic, and even the interior of the backyard treehouse. So that rumor is now laid to rest. Before we even take one step inside of the home, let's first look at an overhead view of the main floor to get our bearings. We saw a lot of the entryway in the film. That, of course, is right here. The placement of the other rooms are as follows. The living room is here. That's where Kevin decorates the little tree that he cut down. The den is here, where Kevin watched angels with filthy souls while devouring a huge bowl of ice cream. On the other side of the entryway is the dining room, and behind the dining room is the breakfast room. And to the right of the breakfast room is the kitchen, where much of the action took place. As we watch the movie, one thing that helps us know which room we're in is being aware of the walls. It's pretty easy to know when you're in the entryway or the kitchen or the breakfast room. But as for the others, if you see this wallpaper, you're in the living room. If you see green walls, you're in the den. And if the walls are red, you're in the dining room. Easy, right? When you're in the dining room, you'll notice that there is a room just beyond this one, but that's never shown to us in the movie. From the exterior on the real house, it appears to be a sunroom. And this is where that room is on the overhead view. One of my favorite features of the dining room is such a simple thing, but very clever. Inside of the china cabinet, the glasses have ornaments placed inside of them. And when they backlit the cabinet, it created a bluish-green luminous glow. Such delicious detail. Let's take a tour of the entryway and dining room now. We got to see a lot of the entryway and stairs in the movie, but now we'll hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories from John Muto.
But we built the whole staircase on the stage, and we distorted it so that you could actually, slide on a sled down the stairs and just make it out the door.
In the entryway, there's a vestibule between the front door and the stairs. Since none of these interior scenes were actually shot on site, when you see people coming in the front door, how did they make the outside look so real?
The shots at the end where they're all coming in, where you're seeing out the front door, one of the things you do in this kind of movie, you take a picture of the outside and then you blow it up giant. It's like 10 feet tall and 30 feet long. And then you put it outside the windows at the right distance so that it looks like it's real out there.
It sure makes it believable. In the back of the hallway, we see an arch and a room beyond, maybe a bathroom. To the right is the entrance into the breakfast room. On the stairwell, we see family portraits, and on the landing there's a beautiful Palladian window with a webbing detail in the mullions. There's also room for a small table and a painting. Let's have a closer look around this area now. The living room. On this end, we find a piano in this corner and a red wingback chair here. This is the area in the home where Kevin makes it look like there's a party going on to scare off the intruders, Harry and Marv. On this end of the room is the fireplace with a comfy chair on one side and Kevin's little tree on the other. Hanging from the mantel are 7 stockings. There are 5 kids in the McAllister household. Buzz, played by Devin Rattray, Megan, played by Hilary Wolfe, Linny, played by Angela Goethals, Jeff, played by Michael Morona, and of course Kevin, played by Macaulay Culkin.
He was a nice kid. Chris and I would chase him around the hallways. He had a bicycle and we had skates. He was smart and funny and everyone liked him. I don't remember anyone ever complaining about him.
All of the other kids we saw milling about the home, and there were a lot of them, were cousins. Now let's tour the living room. Later on, we'll get a full tour of the entire main floor, all in one swoop. We all know this room. Kevin sank down into that cushy leather chair with a huge bowl of ice cream, popped in the movie his uncle warned him about, Angels with Filthy Souls, and began to indulge in every child's fantasy. Home alone with no restrictions and no one to boss him around. The movie he watches looked so real that many people, including myself, believed it was a real film. But it was actually just a fake movie made specifically for that scene in Home Alone.
That was just a super simple set. It was one of those things that just seemed very obvious what it needed to be. It was sort of like Sam Spade's office. Yeah, it was a neat little set.
On this end of the den, we see a desk and a red sofa with a large window behind it, where Kevin spies the burglars, Harry and Marv, about to break into the house. This is also the window we see Kevin peeking out of at the very end of the movie, watching his elderly and previously feared neighbor Marley, played by Roberts Blossom, tenderly reconciling with his estranged son. Before we take a little spin around the room, here are some of the pictures of the set taken by John Muto. Now we'll tour the den, and then we'll head on to the kitchen. You filthy animal. I've had some viewers ask where the traps were in the house, so let's go over the main floor ones now. As Joe Pesci's character Harry walks into the dining room, he first runs into a sticky film, and then a fan blasts feathers all over him. That took place here. The red-hot doorknob that burns Harry's hand took place here. Kevin placed his little trucks and tanks and cars here. The pile of Christmas tree ornaments were under this windowsill. And in the kitchen, which we'll soon be touring, Kevin had the BB gun out the dog door here, as well as the firecrackers in the pot. And the fire on the head trick was there too. John Muto explains why Kevin's character was able to get away with doing these kinds of things without the audience turning on him.
What I was trying to create was something that was worth defending. The movie starts when he said, "This is my home, I have to defend it." So it had to be something that's worth defending.
I think we can all agree that this was a home worth defending. There is something about this home that just resonates with so many people. It's one of the most beloved movie homes of all time, maybe because it takes us back to our childhoods. That's a common comment I get about my tours. People enjoy the nostalgia, and they like being transported back in time to their youth, to a simpler time in their lives. That's why I think this movie home is so popular, why it strikes a particular chord. It takes us back to the magic of our childhood.
When people ask me about all the stuff about the house, it's really what I wanted, where I would want to live if I was a kid. And I think it was the same for Chris, the director, and Julio, the director of photography. It was like our childhood dream of how we wished we lived. We just did everything we could to support that, you know?
Notice when planning the design, they didn't just say, well, what's popular now? That wasn't even part of the process. It never is for good set designers. Instead, it's always about creating a mood and telling the story of the people who live there. This should also be true in your own home. Instead of thinking about what is trending and what's popular now, use design to create a mood and tell the story of the people who live in your home. You, your family. All great design is personal. I have another show on this YouTube channel called Cinematically Inspired Design, where we learn how to do just that, to use the design secrets from the cinema to help you tell your story and create the mood you want in your home. We take our cues from the cinema because they are the masters at it. That's what they're all about. Now, back to this cinematic masterpiece. Let's look at an overhead view of the breakfast room and kitchen to understand the layout better. This is the breakfast room, the room where these scenes took place. Adjoining the breakfast room is the kitchen, which on its own comes in at 477 square feet. One of the biggest surprises for me that I hadn't caught in the movie was that the kitchen has beams on the ceiling. Down the center of the kitchen is an L-shaped island. John Muto explains the choice behind the shape of the island.
The kitchen is an interesting example of how you have to design for the movie, because we knew that the bad guys were going to stick their head in the dog door and that Kevin was going to shoot him. So when you think about it, the only way you could really shoot somebody is if you're laying on the floor.
And thus was born the long L-shaped island to allow Kevin enough room to lay down. Another interesting thing about the island, since the entire home is done in Christmas colors, red, green, and gold, I had assumed the tile in the kitchen was green. But one of the first things I learned from Dan Webster was that the kitchen tile was actually blue. Ponder on that one for a minute. Another surprise, I discovered 2 window seats along this wall. You can see one of them in this shot. But today you'll get to see them in all their glory as we walk through the kitchen and breakfast room. One of the reasons I love to create these tours is that we often don't get to see very much of the homes during the movie. We certainly don't get to pause and look around. There's too much action going on in front of the set design. The camera whizzes by, actors are in the way, scenes flash by too quickly. Here we get to just enjoy the incredible set design at a leisurely pace. We get to just explore the rooms and really discover why we fell in love with these homes in the first place. Coming up, the full tour. You'll notice as we take the tour and as you watch the movie that the colors used are all Christmas colors, red, green, and gold. That includes the wallpapers and even the costumes. I asked Dan Webster, the art director, about this. He said the heavy use of wallpaper was because for much of the movie, Kevin is alone in the house and only about 4 feet tall. So with pattern on the walls, it was made more visually interesting than shooting against plain painted walls. And he added they were in constant touch with the costume department and provided them with swatches of paint colors and wallpaper so that they were in sync. Works beautifully. One thing I want you to watch for in the full tour is what I call the $1 million view, a gorgeous view that we actually didn't get to see in the movie. These 4 rooms all line up with their wide French doors all perfectly aligned. Because of that, we get a stunning view that we never got to see on the show. What adds to the intrigue are the layers of Christmas colors and patterns. There's the red in the dining room, then a large print damask wallpaper in the entryway, then another Christmassy wallpaper, this time with cream dominating, and then the bookend is the green den at the end. And to add further to that, we see the small Christmas print on the drapes at the end of this row, up against the green wall. Perfection. I asked John Muto if it ever bothers him that he goes to so much trouble to design a set, and then it just gets taken down at the end.
Well, that's the thing that people often say. They say, how do you feel when they tear apart your set? The set, once it's on film, you can't get rid of it. It's always going to be there forever, so it's really more permanent than a real house.
Now let's take the tour. Coming up in part 2, we'll run into even more surprises. So you can cross going upstairs off your bucket list. We'll tour the parents' bedroom and bathroom, Buzz's room, the attic, and we'll even get to see Kevin's room. And how do we know what Kevin's room looked like? By asking the designers, of course. We'll also learn about a fascinating scene involving the basement heater that didn't make it into the final film. But as for today, that's a wrap. See you next time on Behind the Scenes.